Welcome everyone to the game between Yagiz Kaan Erdogmus. On your screen, the young 14-year-old boy taking on Arjun Erigaisi, the second seed of the tournament, one of the best players in the world of chess with a rating of 2775. This is a big test for Yagiz Kaan Erdogmus. He is playing his first major super tournament here, and facing a guy like Arjun with black pieces is never going to be easy. But the good news for Yaz is that in the last game, he came out on top against Jordan Van Forest. It was his first win in this tournament. Before that, he had drawn against Nodirbek, Arvind, Neiman, and Vincent Keimer before losing to Javokir Sindarov in a drawn rook game. So right now it's 50% score for Yagiz Kaan. Meanwhile, Arjun Erigaisi would be looking to make a comeback in this tournament after his loss to Vladimir Fedosiev. He opens the game with pawn to c4, the English opening, and e5 by Yaz. And Arjun plays his pawn to g3 to get the bishop out on this long diagonal. Knight comes out to f6. The bishop goes to g2. And now pawn to c6. Now this move is very interesting. It's like the Alpine Sicilian with reversed colors. You want to play d5 and build a strong center, but suddenly the knight attacks the pawn and you have to push it forward. And then the knight settles down on the d4 square. And black can now play d5. He pushes the pawn in the center. He builds up a strong pawn chain. But white will try to break the position with d3. So yes, plays the pawn to d3. And now an interesting moment in the game. What will Yaz play? He takes 12 minutes and plays queen b6. Now this has been played 19 times before, attacking the knight on d4. And one of the normal moves is d takes e4, but then you have to contend with bishop c5. So Arjun plays knight to b3. He still seems to be in his prep. Now bishop b4 has been played before in this position a few games. But look at Yaz. He's going for a very direct plan. He's going for checkmate here on f2. But the question is, what is your plan to short castle? He goes e3 and he tells Arjun that, look, if you take here, knight e3 and I'm better because I'm attacking your queen. So Arjun plays f3 and Yaz jumps in with his knight to f2, attacking the queen. The queen moves away, queen to c2. And now knight h3 check. If you go king h1, he's ready to repeat the position. So that's the reason why Arjun says, I must take. He takes bishop h3. Bishop takes on h3, attacking the rook now. It's incredible what this line is bringing onto the board. Rook d1. And now the question is, should Yaz push the pawn forward? Because in a way, this structure, he pushes it, is limiting the knight, the bishop, everything is limited. But Arjun is like, Yaz, this is a weak pawn now. I'm going after it. Queen d8, and now very important to go queen c4 to start attacking these two pawns. He plays it. Queen c4 on the board, and Yaz cannot defend this pawn anymore, but he can attack the pawn on c5. And knight a6, queen takes pawn, taken. He takes the queen, queen takes queen, knight takes, and bishop takes c5. So black recovers the pawn, but white could very well win another pawn. Although I think knight c2 is the right way to go, but bishop e3 is so tempting, right? You will win this pawn. You are a pawn up now. The knight is defended. Arjun gets up from the board. He's like, yes, it seems like you overextended in the opening. Long castle attacks the knight on d4. The knight comes back to c2. And now the best move here, which must be played at all costs, is rook h8, and he finds it. Good move. Because if bishop takes c5, there is rook e2, and it's black who's better. So Arjun brings his king up. He defends e3. He also defends e2. Once again, questioning Yaz, where is your compensation? And Yaz goes knight b4. What a beautiful move. What a beautiful move. Knight to a3 played here by Arjun. Defends this. Because fine, if you took here bishop e3 or rook e3, sorry, rook e3 would have been very strong. But knight b4, knight a3, he chops off on e3. Knight e3. And now, oh my god, bishop e6 is on the board. What a move this is. Well, I don't usually break in my commentary videos until the game is over, but here I want to make an exception. I want to talk to you about this move, bishop e6. Now, if you look at it, this entire game is like a flow. For example, it started from here where Yaz pushes the pawn, gets firm control in the center, Arjun pushes forward, and then you kind of lose this pawn and Yaz wins this pawn. And at this point, it seems like black doesn't have enough. But to think about it, king f2, knight b4, this is all forcing. I can understand that a player like Yaz can calculate this through. Even the move rook e3, fantastic. Now your mind would usually go towards moves like rook e8, and you see that d4 doesn't win. So your mind goes towards a move like rook bishop d4, but then you realize that g4 actually traps the bishop here. And this is when you realize that actually I need to get my bishop out, but where? Because here I can't get, here I can't get. Here if I get, it blocks the e file. If I go to d7, it blocks d file, so my opponent will go d4. So then you reluctantly start looking at bishop e6, or you just give up this entire variation. You don't sack on e3 here with your rook. But he looked at bishop e6. He came to the conclusion that white cannot unravel easily and went for it, which is why this boy is truly, truly special for me. And now Arjun Erigaisi here goes pawn to d4. He's like, I don't want this pin to exist perpetually. Yaz takes with the rook. And by the way, Yaz has 16 minutes on the clock. Now Arjun goes king e1. He breaks apart from this pin. He doesn't want that to happen. And by the way, you must notice that Yaz was a pawn down. So he's just recovered the pawn. He's now a full exchange down. Rook takes rook. You must take it back with the knight now. Knight takes. And there's a chance to snatch the pawn on a2. And he does it with the knight. So now the main point is white has an extra pawn on the king side, while black has two extra pawns on the queen side. And he plays b5. He starts to roll his pawns there. Knight comes to c2. And Yaz goes a5. He starts pushing his queenside pawns. Knight to c3, offering a trade here. And Yaz takes it. Knight takes c3. B takes c3. The position is still even, but one can feel it that it's slightly easier for black to play. So the two bishops are just monsters. The queenside majority and also the black king joining in very quickly. e4, yes, king c7, an excellent move. And Arjun now starts pushing his kingside pawns. He's like, at least I need to create a passer here. g6, Yaz stops the pawn in its tracks. And Arjun goes knight to d4, attacking the bishop here on e6. I mean, you could take, by the way, here, take, king b6, king a5, b4, b3. It's kind of an unstoppable idea. But he goes bishop c4. He wants to keep the two bishops on the board. And Arjun now goes pawn to e5. He's trying to go g4, f5, e6. The bishop comes back to e7. And g4, a good move. Pawn comes up to c5, attacking the knight on d4. and knight to c2 played. He goes king c6 and knight to e3 seems logical. He plays it to attack the bishop. The bishop goes back, goes to b3. We're on move 35. Yaz has 6 minutes 55 seconds. f5. Arjun is kind of pushing his own pawns, but that weakens the g5 square. The king comes up. Bishop f4. What a move. Attacking the e5 pawn also. The h2 pawn, king e4 played. And now he plays g5, fixing the bishop here. h4 by Arjun, a bit too risky here. And he should have played something like waiting move, rook b1. But h4, he takes the knight, king takes. And now gets a passer here. G takes h4. Takes it. Suddenly you have the a pawn rushing down. By the way, move 40 done. The h pawn rushing down. And Arjun gets up. He goes to the washroom and comes back and now starts focusing. But the resulting position is very dangerous for Arjun. He could potentially still hold this. King d2, a good move. But he needs to be super accurate. And Yaz brings his bishop back to d5. Now he wants to play h3. Here, I think g5 is a must. So that if h3, you go e6. Takes g6. And this here, you can hold with your g passer. Arjun needs to figure this is the moment, but he blunders with rook e1. He misses the moment. He misses the moment totally. He's prepared for h3 with e6 takes fv, and he's calculated this because his e pawn is strong. But what he has missed completely is that black can go back with the king and the pawn is no longer queening, and it's just utterly lost position. And Yaz, of course, calculates it through. He goes king d7, a very, very strong move. Rook e3 played by Arjun. He stops the pawn here from moving forward. But what about the a pawn? a3, a2. It goes. It starts running. Well, you need to use your king to hold this through. But then what Arjun may have missed is bishop g2, h3, h2. This pawn cannot be stopped as well. And Yagiz Kaan Erdogmus, of course, finds this one as well. bg2 played. And he knows that he's winning here. e6. Well, Arjun, he goes back, king e8. Take on f7. And you can see Yaz's mother standing back in the crowd. Rook e6 played. Pawn comes to b4. g5 played. And b3, the pawn pushes forward. You have rook f6 check, but now just move the king away. King to g8. And rook e6. b2 check. And the next move, you're going to get the bishop coming in h3, h2. This bishop will have a check if the rook moves away. And there's nothing that Arjun can do against this. Yagiz Kaan Erdogmus is going to beat the highest rated player in his career. And he does it with an amazing game. And look at the joy on his mother's face. He's beaten Arjun Erigaisi. What a game played by the youngster. And 2 wins in a row. When that is just epic one by Yagiz Kaan Erdogmus. He's just a genius. He's an absolute genius. I am in shock with the play of his, especially that move bishop e6, and then finally showing some great technique. Well, Arjun, he could have defended better, but I think Yaz was just the better player today.